There's a full-blown political storm ripping through the south suburbs. I know. Right now, right at the center of that chaos, is none other than Tiffany Henyard. Once hailed as a beacon of hope and change in local politics, she arrived on the scene, branding herself as the supermayor, vowing to bring transparency, transformation, and a people-first agenda to the community. Her rise felt like a breath of fresh air, someone young, vibrant, and determined to reshape the system. She said all the right things, struck all the right chords, and gave off the aura of someone truly committed to public service. But that perfect image she worked so hard to build is crumbling fast. The superhero persona she flaunted is unraveling at the seams. That cape she once wore like a badge of honor, it's been ripped to shreds by a relentless wave of scandals. Once looked like bold leadership, now looks like cunning manipulation. And now the so-called supermayor finds herself staring down something no PR spin, no carefully scripted interview, no flashy social media post can cover up. A full-blown federal investigation. This week alone delivered yet another crushing blow. The Illinois state controller made a bold move, freezing all state payments to the village of Dalton. Because Dalton failed to submit mandatory financial documents records that, by law, must be turned in. And let's be clear, this isn't just some clerical mistake. This is a blazing red alert. It shows that Dalton's government hasn't just dropped the ball, they've lost the ball, the rule book, in the entire game. No documentation, no transparency, no control, and now no access to essential state funding. That's not just a paperwork issue. That's a full-on leadership breakdown. And while the village scrambles, new questions are bubbling to the surface. Like why township funds were being spent on trips to events that had zero relevance to township duties. One example, the National Mayor's Conference and event clearly meant for city officials, yet somehow, representatives from Thornton Township appeared on the guest list. That's not a scheduling error. It's a strategic move, a power play that's now raising serious ethical questions. Because when your supermayor suddenly becomes the focus of a federal probe, you already know things are about to get real messy. And trust, this is just the opening act. Back in Dalton, the tension is unbearable. You can feel it in the air. Residents who once clapped and shouted her name in support are now flooding meetings, demanding accountability. The same folks who once saw her as a savior are now holding protest signs and asking tough questions. Public forums have turned into battlegrounds full of rage, hurt, and disbelief. Even her once loyal circle, cracking some, are tiptoeing away. In silence, others are openly flipping sides. Because once federal agents show up, loyalty tends to vanish fast. At a recent Thornton Township board meeting, everything boiled over. The energy in the room was explosive. Residents were livid, visibly furious. Trustees looked shaken. The township's finances, a complete train wreck. This wasn't brushed off as poor planning, it was called out as betrayal right there. In public, whistleblowers started coming forward and were met with threats. Employees who tried to do the right thing, fired immediately. What's going down here isn't just mismanagement, it's a full-scale erosion of public trust, the kind that makes people question every level of leadership. And then came the jaw-dropper. $33,300 allegedly spent on Amazon in just one single day. Not over a year, not in a quarter. 1 day. That's not a typo. That's not some rogue intern clicking the wrong button. That's wild. That's an abuse of power on a jaw-dropping level. It screams, I can do what I want, and no one's going to stop me. This isn't about community service anymore. It's about personal gain. Lavish spending. Zero limits. And it shows the true nature of the operation she's running. But the destruction doesn't stop at just empty bank accounts. This scandal has emotionally devastated the very community she promised to uplift. What started as a hopeful campaign has become a punch in the gut. People believed in Henyard. They truly thought she'd be the one to fight for the underdog. But what they got instead was someone who deceived them. Someone who sold them dreams, handed them disaster. One of the only brave voices to step forward was Carmen Carola, whistleblower, who saw the dysfunction firsthand and still had the courage to speak out. And what happened next? Immediate retaliation. Fear became the daily reality. Careers were ruined. Inside Henyard's inner circle, loyalty wasn't earned, it was demanded. Question her, you're out. Challenge her, consider yourself done. Tell the truth, you're silenced. This isn't leadership, it's control. And the people of Dalton are finally seeing the mask come off. What was supposed to be a fresh start for Dalton has now turned into a full-blown dead. Cautionary tale, a real-time warning for every town and city watching. This is what happens when power runs unchecked and transparency gets tossed aside. Behind closed doors, decisions were made in secrecy. Public meetings reduced to polished PR performances. The voices of residents were dismissed. The truth is buried deep beneath layers of spin, but the media kept pushing, kept digging. And every dig uncovered a deeper scandal, exposing a system unraveling in plain sight now with federal investigators. Circling in, the pressure is boiling over. Subpoenas piling up, questions no one can dodge. The emotional fallout exploding into the public. What once looked like fearless confidence now reeks of manipulation and control. And while Henyard scrambles to control the optics, cutting off public comment, dodging questions, rewriting her narrative, the reality is the damage is already done. The cracks in her so-called leadership, way too deep to patch. She once called herself the people's mayor, but in the end, it's the people who paid the highest price. Lavish travel, VIP treatment, a lifestyle of excess funded by the very residents she promised to fight for. Tiffany Henyard talked the talk, but her actions told a whole different story. She was never for the people. She was only ever out for herself. And then came one of the wildest twists of all the now famous Good Burger Facebook fiasco. Once upon a time, Henyard owned a burger joint called Good Burger. But after it shut down, the restaurant's Facebook page didn't disappear. It morphed into the Tiffany Henyard Cares Cancer Foundation. Same page, same admin, same login. But when people started asking questions, legitimate questions about the charity's authenticity, Henyard denied everything. It's flat out with a straight face. Meanwhile, the receipts online told an entirely different story. And let's be clear, once the feds get even a whiff of charity fraud, it's not just news anymore, it's criminal. In just 2 weeks, the FBI fired off 5 subpoenas. 5. All aimed directly at Dalton and Thornton Township. One of them focused on her private security team, where one officer supposedly clocked over 300 hours in 14 days. That's more than 21 hours a day. Every day. Non-stop. The math doesn't work.
A timeline doesn't work.
And now, feds want answers. Dalton. Officials have now been ordered to hand everything over. All documents must be submitted to a federal grand jury no later than May 20th. No extensions. No excuses. No more hiding. This isn't a gentle request. This is the law stepping in. Hard. This is what political collapse really looks like. It's not quiet. It's not slow. Out, fast, and unforgiving. The woman who once wore the supermayor crown now finds herself buried in legal fallout. But this isn't just some tabloid mess. This is real. Real neighborhoods. Real families. Real taxpayer money blown, misused, and abused. Now that she's out of office. The safety net is gone. No more mayoral title. No more protection. Tiffany Henyard is just another private citizen, now one facing a mountain of legal consequences with nowhere left to run. No more town halls, no more grandstanding, just reality that's closing in dash fast. So the big question, will Tiffany Henyard fade into the history books as yet another corrupt politician who flew too close to the sun? Or is she gearing up for one final move, one last desperate push to flip the script and save face? Because the empire she built, the brand, the speeches, the photo ops, it's not just falling apart, it's exploding in public for everyone to see. Dalton doesn't need another headline. It needs healing. It needs real leaders, public servants who actually serve. Because the people have already lost too much. Their trust, their hope, their voice. And what they need now, more than anything, is accountability. And as more subpoenas land, more insiders start speaking out, one thing is absolutely clear. This saga isn't over. Not even close. In fact, the biggest bombshells. They might still be on the way. Will Tiffany Henyard slip away into the shadows of scandal, like so many others before her? Or is she preparing one final act? One more twist in a story already too surreal to believe? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is still unfolding. And if the past is any sign, the next chapter is about to get even messier. Because when someone who branded herself as super mayor ends up drowning in subpoenas, controversy, and chaos, it's not just a fall from grace. It's the total collapse of everything she pretended to stand for. What's happening in Dalton isn't business as usual. It's betrayal. It's driven by ego, fueled by silence, enabled by unchecked power. Tiffany Henyard came in looking like the face of change, confident, polished, progressive. But beneath the surface, a whole different reality. A darker story. One that Dalton is now being forced to live through. What started with hope has ended in heartbreak. Dalton believed in her. They gave her their trust, their support, their vote. And she used it not to build the town, but to build herself. A brand, a spotlight, a lifestyle, glossy photos, national attention, bold speeches. But when it came time for results, all people found were receipts, flight tickets, 5-star dinners, and a mayor who couldn't give up control. And when even your most loyal allies start jumping ship, that's the end game. Loyalty doesn't survive federal subpoenas. It vanishes the second the FBI comes knocking. That $33,300 Amazon bill in a single day. That wasn't a slip-up. That was entitlement. That wasn't a glitch. That was greed. But what hurts most? It's not the dollars lost, it's the betrayal. Brave insiders like Carmen Carroll stood up, spoke out, and risked everything to do what's right. And for that, they were silenced, pushed out, erased. Her story exposed a culture not of leadership, but of fear, arrogance, retaliation. That's not how public service works. That's not governance. That's a machine fueled by imagand, running on ego. And now that the mask is slipped, it's not just cracking, it's imploding. The trips, the firings, the Facebook fraud, the lawsuits. Every new detail confirms the same thing. Henyard wasn't leading, she was performing. And week after week, it only gets clearer. Every document makes it harder to deny. Every subpoena brings us closer to the truth. Dalton's not just watching a mayor fall. They're watching their belief in government collapse with her. And the worst part? It didn't have to end this way. If someone had asked the hard questions earlier, if oversight had done its job, more people had remembered who they were there to serve. But now it's too late for that. The FBI's clock is ticking. Final chapter? It's already being written. So, will Tiffany Henyard go down quietly? Or are we about to witness one last desperate twist? Whatever's coming next, one thing is certain: Dalton deserves better, and this story's far from over.